ensure the project team complies with all relevant legislation, including health and safety regulations, periodically report project status to the sponsor and key stakeholders, inform the line managers about the team members' performance. I'm quite keen on that. In fact, it's a good idea at the kick-off meeting at the start of the project to tell people who are going to report on their performance, not a stick to beat them with, but it's an opportunity for their good efforts to be recognised. And really the best form of performance management, one-on-one, day-by-day, two-way feedback, isn't it? Such that there are no surprises, and give everyone a pat on the back at the end of the project. Arrange for approval of the project deliverables, manage project closure including debriefs and the preparation of post-project reports, and you might even participate in post-project benefit realisation reviews. So there's a lot to do as a project manager. Now the project management framework or methodology that I advocate consists of 4 P's. Processes, they're sequential steps that take us to where we want to go. Principles, universal truths, hard earned, hard learned, don't guarantee success but ignore them at your peril. Pro forma, they're templates, they can be adjusted for your particular project. And I'm running out of P words, so plus a glossary so that we've got a common understanding of what all those terms mean. This is the project life cycle, C, D, E, F, alphabetical order makes it easier to remember, but remember, a lot of different terms can be used. Conception might be initiate, develop might be plan, execute could be implement, and, oh, I just noticed an error there, that should be finish rather than conceive. Oops. This is what happens to risk, one hopes throughout the project. It diminishes, there's less and less uncertainty. In fact, at the end of the project there's no uncertainty at all. We know we've got a disaster or hopefully something much better. You'll notice that the cost is inclined to skyrocket during the execution of the project. That's the accumulated cost curve running through there. After the conception, one produces usually a charter as a consequence of the conception phase. That's a terms of reference or a proposal that the sponsor signs off on. And that's a phase gate. So we need a signature there to move into the develop phase, which is the preparation of the plan. And once that plan is prepared, one hopes the sponsor signs off on that too. That's the baseline plan, that's likely to change. And then the execution, at the completion of execution we've produced the final deliverable and hopefully everyone's speeches of admiration, possibly something less, and ultimately a post-project report. Those are the artefacts, if you like, that we produce as we move through the project. And I've said down the bottom there that the phases might be overlapped and or compressed. It's important that we have a single owner for our methodology to avoid continuous local improvements. The framework owner is often the project management office if one's established, otherwise a functional department. It doesn't necessarily need to be IT. And here's a more detailed, and you probably won't be able to read this sort of detail there, but this is a more comprehensive project life cycle. Conceive, develop, execute and finish, break down to those steps there. They're not necessarily as sequential as shown there because often you have to revisit steps, so they're a wee bit more dynamic. But interestingly enough, every step shown there is relevant to every project. It's just the amount of time that you linger on each step or the extent to which you use more specialised tools and techniques depend primarily on the size and complexity of the project. So every one of those jobs listed there has a deliverable. Something is produced as a consequence of doing it. Identify work. The deliverable there is called a work breakdown structure. Analyse work, that's a bottom-up budget as opposed to the original top-down or often wild ass guess, scientific wild ass guess, calculators have been used. Order of magnitude estimate, but here we've got a bottom-up estimate as a consequence of breaking the project down into smaller chunks, likely to be more accurate. I don't think I'll wade through this, but it's available on the website and you can read it there if you wish. But that's the basis for our project management courses. Why do we have a standard framework? Well, it's a common language, helps with communication, ensures that everything that should be done is done and in the right sequence, reduces learning time for those newcomers. It limits complacency and procrastination, because there it is and people can get on with it. ensures measurable progress and a predictable result, enables comparisons to be made and benchmarking, usually impresses the client and other stakeholders. I've noticed they don't worry too much about what the methodology is, but they're happy that you have one. And of course provides a basis for improvement, so at the completion of every project there might be some recommendations for improving the process, of course. The framework application. The framework phases and steps are relevant to all projects, although for small projects these steps might require very little effort or any serious use of project management tools. For a small project, a feasibility study might only take 5 minutes, but in a big project it could take months. Project in its own right. And most projects are small, of course. The use and resultant value of the various specialised project management tools and techniques at each step will depend largely on the project size and complexity, and that's what I've tried to illustrate there, a sort of Pareto principle, where typically 80% of the projects that an organisation undertakes will be small and maybe consume only 20% of the project budget. But conversely, there'll be a few big ones there that might use 80% of the project's budget, and the likelihood is that we'll make greater use of the various project management tools and techniques for those particular projects. You only use one of these specialised project management tools and techniques if they add value, of course. And here are some proven principles for project management. Develop a solid business case that justifies the investment, and that business case usually produced by the sponsor, but it would be useful if the project manager was involved at that time. Then you better understand the rationale for the project. Have a sound governance that provides clear direction and effective support. Form the sponsor who has some interest in the project. Sometimes this is where projects fall down actually. Rather than a capable sponsor, it's simply who's available. Clearly define the project deliverables, so we must have a clear understanding about where we're headed and negotiate realistic constraints, objectives or parameters, if you wish to call them that, within which to plan and navigate the project. Involve key stakeholders early and often. Yes, I'd like to emphasise that point. In fact, a good idea to involve stakeholders before they even know they're stakeholders. Halfway through the project's not a good time. They're a bit grumpy that they weren't recognised as important people beforehand, and less flexible. Apply a disciplined approach from project start to finish. Preempt project problems. Good risk management's about preempting those risks and address issues promptly and effectively. The issues are those risks that go bump in the night that you weren't aware of. Break the project into chunks to enable more precise estimating, scheduling, control and progress reporting. Delegate whatever doesn't need to be done personally, assuming you've got a team of folk. Remove obstacles to their performance and recognise their good performance. And check progress regularly and take timely corrective action. To solve it easily, one must detect it early, is the mantra. And in fact, if you're unsure, better to over-control initially. And of course, learn from each project, although recognising that all those lessons that you might learn have to be applied with some discretion, because every project's a wee bit different. And that's it. Thank you, and hopefully you stayed the distance. It might have been a wee bit longer than that 15 minutes. Maybe I was telling porkies. But it's been a brief introduction to project management, based on the first few chapters of the framework that you'll find at that website. And there's a blog there too that's got some useful contemporary topics. Project management training programs delivered by myself, well, they could be of the standard public variety, or they can be customised to meet your specific personal or organisational needs. And such training programs I rather like are practical, participatory and interactive. Students are thoroughly familiarised with the 23-step methodology, practised in the application of project management tools and techniques, and provided with workbooks and other take-home material. The duration of my project management training programs varies from 1 to 9 days. Classroom work's not necessarily delivered on consecutive days. One can spread it out, but better scheduled to meet clients' availability. I think that's enough as an introduction. Thanks, folks.